Welcome back. United States President Donald Trump made a joint congressional address earlier today, the first in his new term, talking about the first 43 days of his administration, which has been marked by a major effort at reshaping and downsizing the federal government led by billionaire Elon Musk, spats with America's allies and economic uncertainties brought in by the new tariffs. Saying it's time to take action against tariffs and emphasizing his America First policy, Trump mentioned that India, Canada, and Mexico were charging high and unfair taxes and that reciprocal taxes will be implemented by the 2nd of April. Back in India, amid the tariff warning, markets are in the green, with the Sensex gaining 700 points, with the Nifty also moving up by 300 points.
On average, the European Union, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, and Canada, have you heard of them? And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very unfair. India charges us auto tariffs higher than 100%. April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them. If they do non-monetary tariffs to keep us out of their market, then we will do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market. There's a lot of that, too. They don't even allow us in their market.
Now, the Republican lawmakers are jubilant, having won a trifecta of the White House, Senate, and the House of Representatives in the elections. Making a reference to the American dream, Donald Trump proudly proclaimed that America is back.
And to my fellow citizens, America is back. 6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again.
Now, Trump also lashed out at former President Joe Biden, calling him the worst president in America's history and blaming him for his immigration policy.
Joe Biden, the worst president in American history. There were hundreds of thousands of illegal crossings a month, and virtually all of them, including murderers, drug dealers, gang members, and people from mental institutions and insane asylums, were released into our country. Who would want to do that? This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do.
So to help me make sense of what has been Donald Trump's first address to the joint parliament, let me go across to my guests who are joining me. Suresh Kumar Goyal is former ambassador for India, and Major General Dhruv Katoch as well, who's the director of the India Foundation here. Good afternoon, gentlemen, for joining me at this point. And my apologies for making you wait. Let me begin, of course, with you, Ambassador Goyal. What you make a rather divisive speech, which is, of course, a characteristic of Donald Trump's persona, who seems to be in campaign mode even after having won the elections almost 4 months ago. He still continues to be in a belligerent mood, attacking the Democrat and the woke agenda. He's been particularly stringent about his criticism of wokeness and leftists in a speech today.
I think the speech that he made today clearly and fully conforms to what his agenda had been to make America great again. And therefore, he's talking about sending back the immigrants, reciprocal tariffs, and so on and so forth. I don't really see anything new in the speech or which actually deviates from what he had said earlier. Therefore, this was more or less expected, number one. What did actually surprise me was that he mentioned India by name in the context of the tariff, while actually the tariffs imposed by India on the American imports probably are not really so, they are, in terms of the quantities, they are not that important. They, they are very small portion of the total tariffs on the Indian, on the American goods. There are countries like China, there are countries like uh, Peru, there are countries like Mexico, which are, or Canada, which actually may be are importing more American goods. But he had to mention India by name. So that shows one thing, that I think there was somebody said
Okay.
that to be enemy of America is harmful, but to be a friend of the America could be fatal. So probably India has to guard against that kind of thing. But number two, and that is more important, uh, Trump is going to go ahead with his agenda of tariff, whatever way it may be. Trump is going to go ahead with the agenda of immigrants, how much of a despotic it may look. And Trump is going to go ahead with his agenda in Europe. Now, there'll be no change on all that. And therefore, India will have to take action to essentially, rather than retaliation, but to insulate itself against the consequences of those actions, which are going to be quite massive. Yes.
Okay. Major General Dhruv Katoch, it's interesting how, as Ambassador Goel pointed out, Trump continues to single out India and mention the so-called figure of 100% plus tariffs being imposed by India, despite the fact that India has made several moves in the last few weeks in the run-up to the Prime Minister's visit to try and assuage these concerns of the President, even lowering tariffs on Harley-Davidson bikes, something which has been a pet peeve. Do you think there is any method behind Donald Trump continuously singling out India and highlighting the so-called tariff terrorism which India does?
Thank you, Ritangshu. No, very frankly, you see, tariffs has been his pet subject, President Trump's pet subject for a very long time. So it is nothing new what he has said. And when you look at India's tariffs as compared to what the Americans put on Indian goods, it is far lower. So, okay, I've got, very frankly, whatever has happened as far as tariffs are concerned, yes, it will be, there will be a downside as far as India's economy is, economic dealings with America is concerned. But I think this can be handled. It is not too much of a big deal. It is something which we will handle because we have got a very strong defense relationship also with the US, where a large part of the defense equipment we'll be taking in from them. So to that extent, I think our trade relations will balance out. At the moment, it is very uneven. The trade is heavily weighted in favor of India. So that is one point. But tariffs, I really won't think is going to be a major issue in India-US relations. That is something we can handle. There are four more points I think which are very important. He spoke about wokeism. I'm very glad he spoke about it because this woke culture needs to go. And unfortunately, it is coming up in India also. Now that it is going in the US, I think, a whole lot of this woke nonsense which was taking place, that I think, it needs to be shown the door. That is one. Number two, while it is not directly related to India, he spoke a lot on government spending, on the DOGE, and he also signaled out Elon Musk. Now, I think this is very important because a whole lot of expenditure which is taking place in the US is waste. I think we need to follow that example. Do we need a
Yes.
DOGE in India also? A whole range of expenditure which is going waste. I think we need to look into it. The second aspect, a very large expenditure was in USAID. I don't use the word aid specifically because it gives a wrong connotation. It is their agency for international development, and that was being used in India for all wrong things, from the Sikh, from the farmers' agitation to the Manipur riots to the troubles which we faced in South India over the nuclear this thing, to the steel, to the aluminum manufacturing. Everything which we see in India, it had a hand of foreign people supplying money. That money will stop. We will see peace return to India. I think that is going to be a positive step. On Ukraine, I think that is a very positive development. You see,
General
he
Katoch,
wants that war to end. It'll benefit India.
okay.
And
General
on
Katoch, I just
illegal
want to
immigrants,
focus
I have a
on,
difference of
I'm
view
glad you
with
mentioned,
the ambassador. Just 1 minute. The illegal immigrants is a very strong issue
go ahead.
both in India and the United States. I think we need to take a cue out of what the US has done, and the 20 odd million illegal Rohingyas and Bangladeshis who are in India. We need to throw them out. Thank you.
Manuel Katoch, I'm glad you mentioned on this aspect on Trump's tirade against wokeism, and which you have also indicated is something is a problem not just in America and India as well, but if you look at the impact it is having right now in the United States, especially with the crackdown on DEI or the diversity and integration, that's I think the full form of the term. The impact is unfortunately being felt by many Indians who have jobs in the United States because the crackdown has been to remove those who have gotten jobs on the basis of the race and on the basis of the gender. Is that something which you feel will be a concern for the thousands and thousands of Indians who are either working in the United States in key companies like Meta, which have started a crackdown on DI on Trump's watch, or people who are even looking to get jobs in the United States?
Very frankly, Ritangshu, the Indian labor force is very competitive there. And in terms of intellectual value, they are far superior to what the Americans are. There is no way in which our competent people are going to be left out. Perhaps there's, at the lower level, there may be some problems, but when you're looking into the major companies, no, it's going to have very, very marginal effect. The majority of people are they want the Indian workforce. It is one of the most dedicated workforces which has contributed significantly to the American economy, unlike others. So I very frankly I don't see a very major impact in my view on that.
Okay, Ambassador Gould, do you share that optimism which Major General Katoch is exuding, given the fact that yes, the Indian labor force in the United States has a reputation of being extremely capable, extremely intelligent, which is also one of the reasons why some of the white Americans have been a bit insecure and have been resorting to the race card or the son of the soil card to try and ensure that quote unquote outsiders don't take their jobs away.
Look, it's not a question of being competent or not being competent. The fact is that whenever a foreigner is going to take a job in the USA, the natives, Americans, are going to feel that it is hurting their own job opportunities, and therefore that kind of resistance is going to happen irrespective of whoever it is really, whether it is an Indian or a Mexican or whoever it is. Therefore, the tirade against immigrants is going to be there. The important point really here is that unlike many other communities, those who migrated to the USA legally, they have become part of the American political mainstream, as you know very well, and everybody knows. And therefore, there is sufficient protection of interest of those who are working legally as American citizens. The problem is that there is a huge number of Indians who go through different routes, donkey route, as you call them, to the USA, and they create a problem in the labor market over there. And I think we are going to continue to face this pressure from the American market, American people, against those who have gone there illegally, and they're working there. Petrol pumps, you name it. There is a huge number who work there, and I think that is what we need to guard against. Thank you.
All right, we leave it at that. Major Dhruv Katoch and Ambassador Gold, thank you so much for joining us on this short discussion and giving us your views as well. Let's